Hi guys, welcome back. This is Professor Hank, and in this video I want to address some misconceptions that I find, some problems that I find a lot of students have when it comes to the return statement and functions in C++. Okay, the first thing that I want to talk about is going to be the fact that a return statement, its primary purpose is to terminate a function. Secondarily, you have the option of returning a value. Students always remember the latter, but they never remember the former. Okay, so I'll show you an example of that. Another thing is that students will try to return multiple values from a function, but in C++ you can only return one value. Okay, so you can return X, you can return 5, okay, but that's it. In Python, you might be able to return 5, 10, and 15, you know, or return A, B, and C, right? You can't do that in C++. It's syntactically correct, but it doesn't do what you think it would do, or it doesn't behave the way it does in Python, which makes it even more confusing. All right. Another issue that I'll see students having is, you know, having a value returning function, a function that has a return type other than void. Say the return type's int, double, float, whatever. Okay, and they forget to return the value. Okay, it could be that they have a decision structure like an if-else, and in the if part they will have the return statement, right? They'll return X. Okay, but in the else part they'll just leave it out altogether. Okay, so that's a common thing that I see happen too much. And finally, I'll see students getting confused by what it means to return something versus what it means to display something. Okay, a value returning function has a non-void return type. And so you can assign it to a variable when you call it. So let's say I have a function named foo. You can say when you call it x equals foo. So whatever value that is returned by foo will be assigned to x. Okay, that is returning. That's a value returning function. That's a function that returns something. And a function that displays something, or a function that prints something, doesn't return anything at all, right? It's not going to have a return statement with a value. Its return type is going to be void. So what's going to have instead, it's going to have cout statement for putting something on the screen. Okay, so these are 4 common things that I see constantly in my classes at multiple levels, at all kinds of levels. So let's take a look at some examples of what we're talking about here in Visual Studio. So the first thing we'll do is we'll talk about, or I'll show you an example of a function that returns but doesn't return anything. So this is going to be a void function. We'll call it foo. Okay, and let's say that we're going to pass it 2 integer variables, a and b. And this function is going to divide a by b and display that to the user. Okay, so you might have something that looks like this: cout a divided by b. Okay, now we don't want to have a loss of precision, so we'll make sure that we do floating point division, not integer division. Okay, that's what the times 1.004. Now, if we pass to this function 0 for b, we're going to have a divide by 0 error, so we can't have that. Right? So what we can do instead is we can put a little test here. We can say, well, if b is equal to 0, don't do anything. You know, maybe we can just say return. Okay, and have the function do absolutely nothing. That's valid. Okay, but take a look at that return statement on line 7. Take a good long look at it. It's a return statement. Does it have any value with it? Did I say return 8, for example? No. Matter of fact, you can tell by the red underline under the 8 that that's not legal syntax, because you can't return a value from a void function. Okay, but you can return from a void function and return nothing. So now if we were to pass 0 to b, then this test expression will evaluate to true, and then we will terminate the function on line 7. So the cout statement on line 8 never executes, and therefore there's never a possibility of having a divide by 0 error. Okay, so let's see an example of this. So, as a matter of fact, I'll add just so we can see it even better. I'll put this in a block, and I'll just have a little message here that says, you know, error. Okay, so that way you can see it. Okay, now when we pass this function, 5 and 0. Okay, we'll pass it 5 and 0. So when we run it, what are we going to see? We're going to see error, and that's going to be it. Program's not going to crash, right? So there's error. Why? Because what I just described, As soon as cout error executed, we returned from the function. Okay, you returned from the function. This is perfectly legal, and people forget this all the time. And remember, return statement, primary job, what? Return. Okay, so if we were then to pass it, say 2, well then this will evaluate to false. The whole block here will get skipped, and then we will execute that last line on line 12. We'll do the division and show the answer. Okay, which is going to be right there, 2.5, right? 5 divided by 2, 2.5. So yeah, that's the first thing. Okay, I want to show you. And by the way, I'll also see students who do this from time to time too, right? They'll put a return statement right before that closing curly brace. This is utterly and completely pointless. Okay, and I'll leave little notes in their feedback. Well, this is pointless. Why are you doing this? Because a function will terminate as soon as it executes a return statement or it comes across their curly brace right there. So you can leave this out. This is kind of confusing, at least to me, when I look at that return statement right before a curly brace. I'm like, why do you even put that there? It doesn't make any sense. Okay, so that's example number 1. Okay, now example number 2 of things that I see students do that are wrong or make no sense or that they get confused about is they'll try to return multiple values. Okay, so you can return a value, fine, right? So you can return 0. Okay, you can create a variable int x and assign it, I don't know, whatever value, however you need to do it, and return that. Okay, that's a value returning function. Take a look at the return type. It's int. You have a return statement and you have a value. Now in this case, you got a return statement right before that closing curly brace, but you got to have it because you want to return the value that's stored in x. Okay, so that makes total sense to do it then. I'll see this every once in a while too. I'll see a student do this. I'm like, well, what are you doing? You know. But anyway, so you can do return x. Okay, because a function can return a single value. So we can do cout bar, right? And we'll see on the screen the contents of x, right? Because 99 got returned and it got sent to cout in main. Okay, so there's your 99, totally fine, not a problem. Okay, but sometimes students will try to do something like this, right? They'll try to say, oh, well, I want to return 2 values. Okay, you can't do this, okay? I mean, you can, but it doesn't do what you think it's going to do. Okay, because look, there's no red underline. Okay, so it's syntactically, it's not incorrect. Okay, but take a look at what we print out on the screen. Okay, there's 77. Where's the 99? Okay, so the problem here is that when you return multiple values, it's the last item in the series that gets returned. So only the 77 got returned by bar and sent to cout. If I was to switch this order, okay, something like that, then, and run it, then you're going to see 99. Because the y that got returned, you know, in that return statement, it gets ignored. Okay, so this isn't Python. This is C++. Now, you Python guys, you'll be saying, well, you didn't assign it to multiple variables like you can in Python, so that's why it didn't work. You know, you're thinking, well, you should be able to do something like this, right? So that way, the contents of y right here will be assigned to A, and the contents of x will be assigned to B. That's what you're thinking, right? That's a perfectly fine thing to do in Python. In C++, it's nonsensical. Okay, and so you're going to see that there's an error message here. Okay, so why? What happened? Okay, the problem here is that, here, let's see out A and B. See out A and B. Okay, now what happened is that the x got assigned to B. Okay, so let's go ahead and print out the B, and then I'll show you that error message I was telling you about here in a second. Okay, so you'll see the contents of B, all right, which is 99. Okay, because the contents of x, which is 99, got returned and assigned to B. Okay, now if I was to do cout A, comma, B. Okay, now I'm going to get my error message that I was talking about a second ago. Because I'm trying to display the contents of A. Okay, take a look at the error message right there. Uninitialized local variable A used. Okay. Why? What happened? Okay, what was returned by bar was assigned to B, but nothing happened with A. Okay, nothing at all. So it's kind of like saying, well, A and then assign B equals bar. Right? Another way of looking at it would be if you did this. Okay, it's similar, the syntax is similar to doing something like this. Okay, what's happening here? Nothing. Okay, so if you were to do A equals 0 and assign something to it, okay, fine. But you'll see 0. What was assigned to A was 0. Okay, now why? What's going on there? Well, let's tie this all together by writing a statement that looks like this. This is something that C++ allows you to do. Combine stuff or expressions separated by commas and series. Okay, which is really confusing, and it's not in our textbook because it is confusing and it's not the best way to write code. Okay, these are two assignment expressions that are separated by a comma in series, which is valid syntax, but again, this is confusing, so it's not a good idea. So if you're in my classes, don't do this. Okay, this is terrible. It's not in our textbook, but it's something you can do, and I just wanted to show you, just to show you give you a better idea of what was happening when you try to do something Python-esque. Okay, so these are two separate expressions. Bar being assigned to B is only being assigned to B. Nothing's happening with A in that case. Okay, so you can't do Python stuff. And let me show you another thing, another mistake that I see students will make, and it'll be something like this. Okay, so let's see, what should we do? Spam. Okay, so we'll make a variable int A or int num. We'll call it int num, and we'll have it return a boolean. Okay. So sometimes I'll see students who will do something like this. They'll say, well, we're going to see if this is a even or odd number, and we'll return true or false based off of that. So if you divide the number by 2 and there's nothing left over, then you can return true, right? Because that would be even. Okay, we'll name the function is even. Okay, and then that's it. Okay, so they'll do something like that. And so then we could say in main, if is even, cout, it is an even number, and we'll pass it for this first test, we'll pass it 4. Okay, else cout, it is an odd number. Okay, so you'll do that. I'll see students who do something like that. Okay, and then you run it, you test it, and it appears to work. So you're like, cool, no problem, right? But now what happens if I pass it 5, right? 5 is not an even number. Now let's just think about this. What does this code mean then? Okay, if num modulus 2 equals 0, well, if we pass 5, 5 divided by 2 is 2 with the remainder of 1, therefore it's not even. So this return statement right here is going to get totally and utterly skipped. So what are we returning then? What are we returning then? I don't know. Can you tell me? I don't know. Let's run it and see what happens. Okay. Still says it is an even number. Was it? Right? So what happened is that something was returned by is even. Okay, and as long as it's not 0, then this is going to evaluate the true. So let's see if it returned anything that's printable. Right? I mean, this is a tough bug to find, right? If you don't understand, or if you don't understand the logic of what you're writing in your functions, then it looks like it should work, or it looks like it does work. Okay, so what did it return? Okay, the function just returned 1. Right? See that 1 there from is even 5? Okay, so that doesn't make any sense. the correct thing to do here would have been to do something like this, return false. Okay, and so then let's get rid of this here, and our line 37 should show up now because the remainder is going to be 1. Right, so now you see it is an odd number. So you can see that that one was really tough, and it's easy to understand why students struggle with that, because it compiled, the program ran. You know, if you didn't test it both ways with both an even number and an odd number, you would never have found that bug, that logic error, right? So I wanted to point that out. And one more thing I want to point out, okay? One more thing that I see students struggle with is the difference between a function that returns something and a function that prints something, okay, or displays something. And I know that this is a problem for students and other professors, and I mean, it's just not students I'm seeing, right? Because it's common. Learning functions, especially the first time you come across them in C++ or anywhere, is hard. It's challenging. Okay, so this is a function that returns something, okay? It is a value returning function. Take a look at the return type. Okay, so we'll just write a function that adds 2 numbers together. Okay, and we'll just return their sum. That is a value returning function. This is a function that returns something. Look at the return type, int. It's not void. Okay, value returning functions are going to have a non-void return type, and they're going to have a return statement that returns a value. Okay, now in this case, the value is the result of a plus b, but if that's freaking you out a little bit, then fine. I'll say int s equals a plus b, and then I'll say s, right? So that is a value returning function. So I can do something like cout add 5 and 3. Okay, that is a value returning function. Okay. So you can see there's the 8, 5 plus 3. Okay, now this is a function that returns something. This is a function that prints something to the screen, right? So write a function that prints the difference of its arguments to the screen, right? So that just means subtraction. So it doesn't return anything. It does not return anything. It is a void function. So that's your first clue, right? Void. There's no return statement that's going to have a value attached to it. Okay. Now we already saw earlier at the beginning of the video, towards the beginning of the video, that you can return from a void function. You just can't return a value from a void function. Okay. But anyway, so we'll call this sub. Okay. And so this is just going to display the difference of its arguments. Okay. There's no return. I'm not saying return a minus b, right? There's no return value returning function. Okay, even though I could return from the function if I want to do this silly thing, which I told you is pointless, right? That's valid syntax too. It's just that this is completely and utterly pointless because the function terminates or returns when it gets to the closing curly brace anyway. Okay, so let's go ahead and call our sub function sub 5 and 2. Okay, so that's going to display something on the screen. Okay. So you're going to see there's the 3. So this add function is an example of a function that returns a value, and sub is an example of a function that prints something or displays something to the screen. Okay. And then as a bonus, one last problem that I see, or one last thing that I see students make a mistake with, is they'll try to assign to a variable a void function, right? And then they're like, I don't understand what's going on, because they didn't understand about return statements, or they didn't read that part. They think that this means return, or they'll do something, you know, like this, you know, and it doesn't make any sense, right? There's no return statement here that returns a value. Therefore, you know, assigning to X is either going to be syntactically incorrect in the form or in terms of you know, it being a void function, right? And you're trying to assign a void function to a variable, or you'll have that weird behavior like we displayed, or like we showed, you know, a couple of minutes ago, where you're returning you're assigning a function that's a value returning function to a variable, but you don't know what the heck is going to go in there, right? Because what value did we return? I don't know. Where's the return statement? Okay, so that's everything that I have for you in this video. And these are common misconceptions, common mistakes, common problems that I've seen students make semester after semester for years. And it's not, because they can't get it or because they're not smart enough to get it or anything like that. It's because you're new, right? And you don't know, you haven't had enough practice yet, and functions are hard, and everybody struggles with something, and a lot of people struggle with functions. So just know that you can do it, you can overcome it, and just the more practice you get, the easier it gets. Nobody gets it on the first try, right? You just have to be persistent about it, and remember and understand and believe that you can do it. You can. You absolutely positively can. I believe that everybody can learn to program at some level or another. You can do this. You absolutely, positively, without a doubt, 100%. I have no doubt that you can do it. Okay, so that's everything that I got for you in this video. If you thought the video was useful, please consider giving it a thumbs up. If you thought the video sucked, you got the thumbs down as well. Hit subscribe, hit the bell so you can be notified of new videos when they're posted. Consider supporting the channel in multiple ways. We've got paid memberships for as little as 99 cents a month for additional perks. We've also got super thanks that are available if you found the video especially helpful. Appreciate that. As usual, if you're a student of mine and you have any questions, please feel free to shoot me an email or hit me up during my office hours or log on to Zoom and connect with me that way. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.